Hi and welcome to Extreme Academy Live Part 8. This is the final one in this course. It's been amazing to have you on this journey with us. We're delighted the way this has been going, and it's fantastic that you've kept with us all the way to the end. And this week we're going to do things a little bit differently. We've got many of the things that you like, but we're going to introduce a few new faces, a few new voices, some people that have been behind the scenes throughout the course. We brought them onto camera this week so you can meet more of the team. So what we're going to do is we're going to cover some frequently asked questions or some questions that Isaac's picked out from the Q&A that's been going on throughout the course, and we're going to cover those. We're going to talk about careers. So what could you do now that you've got this knowledge? What could you do? So we're going to have Dave talk about career opportunities in networking. And then we're going to have Claire, and you've heard us talk to Claire quite a few times in the videos. We're going to have Claire come and talk about the process for the exam, and she's going to answer all the questions you've got about how to get to the exam, how long it's going to take, everything you need to know about the exam. I think this week's going to be a little bit shorter than normal. We're going to try and have a little bit of fun as well, and just remember to keep your questions coming in. We've got the Extreme team behind the scenes. They can ask questions on anything that we've done during the course. So pop your questions into the Meeting Pulse app, and we'll answer them during the session. Now, you've got to know Isaac really well, and Isaac's up in Cambridge, and every week he seems to be wearing something different or wearing a different hat, and he's got something different on his shelves. So I'm going to say hi to Isaac now. We're going to try and do a little bit of conversation live. And so Isaac, how are you doing? How's it up in Cambridge? And tell us what else is on your shelves this week.
Hi everyone, hi Rowan, hi Rowan. Hey man, it's so good to be back again. A little bit sad about week 8, but so excited about what's happened so far. So in terms of Cambridge, I love this little town, this little city, right? Cambridge, I keep bragging about it. The place where we invented gravity, where Isaac Newton invented gravity. Man, we had so many comments about us, people trying to convince us that it wasn't invented in Cambridge. Oh, sure, go read up, you'll see everything about Cambridge. So absolutely fantastic place. Like I said last week, if you ever come up to Cambridge whenever COVID's over, get hold of me on LinkedIn. Fantastic. I'll love to meet up with you. Now, regarding these shelves behind me. So most weeks you've seen, those of you who've been eagle-eyed, that I've got little, different vehicles and all sorts of things over here. Last week I had this little thing here, which is called the tuk-tuk, which I first saw in India. You find them all over the place, really interesting. But I love scale modeling, right? I build scale models. And when I was a kid, I used to do them, but I didn't have patience to paint them and everything. I just wanted to complete them. Now I have a lot of patience. But today I want to show you something that I haven't shown before. This to a lot of people they'll be really familiar with this. The most famous of the British planes, although there's many of them, but the famous Spitfire, and that's something that I built, that I'm really particularly proud of. But that's the type of stuff that keeps me busy in the evenings when I'm not doing my normal day-to-day work. So yeah, that's me, and that's Cambridge. What about you? What's happening up in Kent? Did you guys invent anything significant? I mean, gravity might be a little bit of a high bar, but what happens in Kent?
Well, Isaac, down here in Kent, I should say down in Kent rather than up in Kent. We're actually I'm in the southeast corner of the UK. If you imagine London and then go southeast from there towards France, that's where Kent is. And this is known as the Garden of England. It's famed for its orchards for hard fruits. And I believe the rumour has it that the apple was invented here about 500 years ago. So, a close connection there to your gravity story. And but it's a beautiful part of the world. It's very agricultural. It's a great place to be in the summer. A little bit wet at the moment, but it's a fantastic place to live. Now, I haven't seen you, Isaac, for nearly a year. So I'm down in Kent. You're up in Cambridge. Dave and Claire, they're off towards the west of London. We've got Paul up in the north of England. We've got Ben and Stuart and John. They're also in remote locations, and we've all, you've all been living through significant times, a global pandemic, which means most of us are working in remote locations right now. So Isaac, we haven't seen each other for nearly a year, believe it or not. But that hasn't stopped us. I mean, we talk nearly every day. We've with the rest of the team, we've put Extreme Academy live together without meeting each other, and we've been able to put this together and broadcast this course from our remote locations. And and what we have in the audience now is network engineers. So everybody who's here now, you're a network engineer, whether you've even before you've done the exam, we think of you as part of our community now. You're an engineer. So Isaac, what I was going to ask you to start off with, because I know the next thing you're going to do is cover some frequently asked questions. Can you start by explaining the network that we're all on right now? So from our homes, from your home, my home, Claire, Dave, into the homes of everybody who's watching and who's watching recorded later on. Look at that through the eyes of an engineer. How should we look at that and imagine what's happening, and then apply some of the things that we've been learning about to what's happening to our experience right now? So Isaac, over to you. Why don't you cover that first, and then cover some of the frequently asked questions or top questions from the course so far.
Absolutely, Rowan. This is a fantastic example of the power of networking. So as you can see on screen, we have 3 locations that are broadcasting. My own venue here is I'm broadcasting from my home in Cambridge. I'm just using a standard iPhone to do the broadcasting, and for all of the sessions I have been using iPhones. Others have been using just cameras like webcams or so. But Claire's at home, Rowan's at home, and myself at home. So there's 3 sites, and we are all broadcasting. And then Dave at his place is bringing in these 3 feeds that he's receiving on the network. Obviously, he's also got those ads, those ads that we play in the interval, in those like 10-minute gap. He's got those preloaded already and sitting on his machine. So at the right time, then he just presses, and that goes over the live feed. And then from Dave, again, it's going out through that same internet connection that he has. It's going out to this Vimeo live video distribution system, right? So the 3 feeds, they come into Dave where they are mixed together. At the appropriate time, he'll load in those adverts, but that is then all being mixed in, going through into video. Into Vimeo, and then Vimeo is then broadcasting across all those different channels that you see over there. Vimeo live, where all these things have gone live, but we've also broadcast live on YouTube. There hasn't been as many people watching on YouTube live, but that's gone live. We've had it on Facebook as well. There hasn't been a lot there, but we've had quite a lot of people watching this as well using LinkedIn. So this has been pretty unique. We kind of haven't done this before at Extreme, and we said, hey, let's give it a go. Let's show people the power of networking, how all of these things work. So packets are coming in, packets are going out, and you sitting there at home watching this content, and behind the scenes, bits and bytes flowing in and out. Absolutely fantastic. So that, I think, is kind of the first of the 4 of the first 5 questions. So I will cover them in next. Claire, if you don't mind, can you just load up question number 2 on screen, and then we'll go through the rest of it. I'll go through all of these questions. Thank you. Okay, so question number 2 was asked on the January the 7th by Elissa. And the question was, I'll just read it on the screen. It says, the example of bandwidth compared to lanes to a traffic was really helpful. But I'm curious which devices or technologies are involved when creating bandwidth. What is necessary in a network to have a high bandwidth speed? If this is not too much, how does bandwidth look like? Is just many rows for high bandwidth of electrical signals being sent at once over the wireless access point or a wire? So that's a really, really good question, because, and I want to say thanks, Elissa, for asking that question. When you think about these electrical pulses flowing down a wire, they don't have a variation of speed, right? An electron that flows, down a cable, it flows at a fixed speed. You don't slow it down and speed up. It just flows at a certain speed. If you want to increase the flow, then you're not making those packets go faster. You're just putting in more lanes of traffic. So I was trying to think, what's a really good way to explain this? And I was thinking about a tap. So if you want to drink some water, you take a glass, you go over to your tap at home in your kitchen sink, perhaps, and you turn it on a little bit, and it starts filling up. If you want to fill it up quicker, you turn it up more. Okay, you turn it up more, and the water flows out faster. If you turn it up a lot, then the water is going to flow out a lot more. What is happening? Okay, is the water flowing out faster or slower than before? Actually, the water is flowing at the same speed. But all I'm doing is I'm controlling how much water is flowing. So if I turn on all the pressure, lots of water comes out. That doesn't mean that the people, who run, the water mains, that they suddenly decide, oh, give more pressure to Isaac. No, the pressure is the same for everybody who lives in this area. But when I turn on the tap, there's a mechanism inside that allows just a little hole of water to come through, or a massive hole of water to come through. Okay, so by controlling that valve, it controls the amount. For bandwidth, if I pay them a certain amount, they can control how much data. So yes, it's like how many lanes are allowed to travel on that copper wire. Okay, how many cars can travel on that copper wire, right? It could take massive amount, but the ISP determines how many lanes they're going to give you based on the package that you have, the amount of money that you pay them. So if you pay them a little bit, it's that same copper wire that comes into your house, that goes into that black box. It's the same copper wire, right? It's not that they're slowing down how fast the electrons move. They're just controlling the flow. Okay? How many lanes are they allowing on the copper wire? So you don't have to go, and if you want more bandwidth, it's the same access point that you're going to use. They're not going to go and change and run a new fiber cable, a new copper cable. No, they can leave that same copper cable in place. The ISP just turns on the tap and allows more to flow through that copper cable. Now, there are restrictions, there are limits, okay? And that limit, what could limit the maximum data that you could get, is not necessarily just the copper cable, but how far you are from the telephone exchange. I am quite far. In fact, I'm very far from the telephone exchange. So the maximum that I can get in my house is about 30 megs or 32 megs. That's about the maximum that I can get. But if I was closer to the exchange, the distance was short, that means it could be more reliable, I could get a faster connection. I could get a faster connection if I paid for it. Because if I paid for it, then they could open the tap a little bit more or a lot more and allow full usage of that copper cable. So I hope that's kind of helped and answered that question, Elissa. Thank you so much again for that great question. Claire, can you bring up question number 3 on screen, please? Thank you. Okay, question number 3 was one that came through on YouTube, and this was in response to video number 3. It was asked by Tutto a Posto. Thanks, I'm sure that's not your real name, but thanks Tutto a Posto for posting this question. And the question was, I'm going to read it off the screen. It says, this is a question about VLANs. If a network has multiple VLANs, virtual LAN 1, 2, 3, etc., by design they are separate and segmented. Yes, that's what they are. Is it possible to allow certain VLANs to communicate only with each other? For example, if I wanted VLAN 1 to be able to communicate with VLAN 9, but no other VLANs and no other VLANs accessing these two, how would this be accomplished? Is it a switch configuration or file configuration or something else? Great question. Well, the answer is quite clear. If you have two VLANs, they appear completely separate VLANs, LANs to devices, right? Completely separate. So if you wanted to do this, communicate from one VLAN to the another VLAN, you'd have to have a layer 3 device, like a router, for example, okay, or a layer 3 switch. You would need to have that so that it can route the packets from one VLAN to the other VLAN. Can be done. Thank you again. Great question. Claire? Yeah. Question 4. Thank you. Okay. Question number 4 was by Rakesh Gupta. Let's read it. It says, is WPA3, which is a security layer for wireless, is it backwards compatible with WPA2? Meaning, can I use the same SSID to authenticate both WPA3 and WPA2 capable devices? Great question, Rakesh. And yes, the answer is WPA3 compatible clients are backward compatible with WPA2 compatible routers, access points and things like that. And WPA2 and WPA3 devices, they can both coexist on the same network. Generally speaking, when you have these developments that happen, for example, with security WPA2, WPA3, they are all backwards compatible, because you can imagine if they were not, you can imagine how many things would break if they were not compatible. So the answer is yes. Thank you. Great question. Okay, to question number 5, I'll just read it off the screen. This came from Maria on January the 22nd. In Meeting Pulse, and she asked the question, hi there, the homework in part 1, question 3. So I did this homework, I solved it the way my teacher taught me in university about 3 years ago. But Isaac has done it in another way. We both got different answers, but when you search in Google for it, there is a few sites who say that Isaac's answer is correct and a couple of different sites that say my answer is correct. So which one is it? The website got the same answer as me, and this website got the same answer as Isaac. And then Maria gave 2 different websites. So the question that she's talking about was when I did that module on binary, which included binary. That was module 1, or the first session. And I gave you, as one of the exercises, question number 3 was, please take this number, I think it was something like 11,000 and something, and convert that into a binary number. And so when I read this question, I scratched my head. It's like, wow, did I get this so wrong that I did the calculation, incorrect? And I went to look at the question, and I did put all the zeros and ones there, and I looked at my answer like, this is correct. And I double checked that on my calculator with an app, and it was correct. And then I looked at Maria's, and I wasn't. Then I saw exactly what it was. So the context of what we were doing is we were trying to teach you binary and how to translate decimal numbers, base 10, into binary, base 2. And part of that, an important part of that, is to define what a byte is. And a byte is 8 bits. Okay? If you were asked to convert the number 1 into binary, then essentially you would have 7 zeros and then the 1 right at the very end. That would be the equivalent of 1. But the way you would write that, you wouldn't just write a 1, because that could then mean, well, that's decimal or binary. What are we talking about over here? So if we're talking about decimal, we write it as 1. But if we're talking about binary, we write it as 000000001, right? And it's important that we write it that way, because the computer on the other side is expecting to get a full byte, even though the first 7 bits, the most significant 7 bits, are zeros. The computer on the other side is still expecting to get 8 bits. So what Maria had done in this example is the first 2 or 3 bits of byte number 2, she left, because they were zeros, they left it out, or she left it out. And so when I looked at her answer, the first byte had, on the left, the most significant byte, had only, I think it was 6 bits listed. And the second one had the 8 bits, because she dropped off the 2 zeros. Technically, that is incorrect. If you are showing a binary number, you should show it with all the preceding zeros, so that it's 8 bits, 8 bits. And if you're going to send that to another computer, that computer, if it doesn't get 8 bits, it's going to say, hey, there was a problem, please resend that again. So again, such an interesting question. And we just don't have time. There were so many questions that came through, to go over everything. But I've answered 5 of the more interesting ones. Please remember that you can continue asking questions on Meeting Pulse, or even in YouTube. You can still go on there in the comments field if you have some. I know many people have posted comments about some errors. There were some errors, some typos. I've gone back and I've fixed that. And most times when you've pointed out typos, I've gone in on YouTube and I've made a comment. If you just read there, you'll see. Thank you for many people who've pointed out that there were certain errors in that. It happens. We've fixed that. But we might not be able to answer immediately, but generally I keep Meeting Pulse open on my computer all the time. Claire and some of the other guys just have it in the background all the time. And although we don't always get to your question immediately, we will get to your question. So if you have a technical question, go and answer it. Go and ask it on Meeting Pulse. And then don't just, leave it. We will get to that. So the next day or next 2 days, go back there and check that we've answered your questions. So I hope that's been That's been cool. Thank you for asking questions. We really enjoy getting technical questions just to see where our audience is. Thank you. Back to you, Rowan.
Thanks, Isaac. Some great answers there to some fantastic questions. Remember, you can keep asking the questions in Meeting Pulse. The Extreme team are waiting for you there. Ask anything you want about any topic that we've covered in the course, and the team will answer your questions. Now, you've seen me, you've seen Isaac as we've gone through these live broadcasts. You've also heard us talk about other people on the team. And I want to introduce you to Dave now. And Dave's an expert in networking. He's had a fantastic career of traveling the world, installing, deploying networks, advising our partners and customers on the designs of networks. And we asked Dave if he could share some thoughts about career opportunities. So what are the things that you could think about that you could use the knowledge that you've gained from this course and develop a career? So we got Dave to record this earlier because he's actually busy behind the scenes with the live broadcast. So he recorded this earlier. So if we can roll Dave's video, and he's going to share some thoughts about career opportunities in networking.
Hello, my name is Dave Wheel. I work at Extreme in our training and enablement team. And I just thought I'd give you a few ideas, thoughts, suggestions, and maybe some things to get you thinking about the types of career that you could pursue following up from these sessions that we've been running. Now, I've listened intently to Isaac over the past 7 weeks and really taken a great deal of information myself from it, even though I've been in this industry since I think around about 1987, so for a good number of years. And in those years, I've worked in a number of roles, from support engineer to systems engineer or pre-sales. I've had sales roles for a time, training and enablement roles as I'm doing now. And I've also worked in vendor organizations, as I do for Extreme Networks at the moment. I've also worked in systems integrators, and I've even had some spells working as an end user on contract at those sorts of organizations as well. So I have had a lot of exposure of the different types of environments that you can work in a networking industry capacity. Now, as I said, I've been listening intently to Isaac. Isaac has spoke a great deal about Cambridge, so I thought I'd give you just a moment about where I am. I'm based in the southeast of England. The nearest town to me is a place called Woking. Now, Woking is famous for a few things. The first one I thought I'd mention is it's the hometown of the group The Jam. So for those who remember The Jam from the 1980s and 90s, that's where they come from. They come from Woking. And the next thing I thought I'd mention is that, and I'm sure there's a few sci-fi fans out there in the audience tuned in at the moment. So you may have guessed this already. Woking is the hometown for H.G. Wells and was the setting for the fictional the first Martian landings in the book The War of the Worlds. So that first Martian landing was in Woking. Now, if suddenly I get cut off and you lose my transmission, rest assured it's highly unlikely that this connection is anything at all to do with it. So let's get into the main thrust of what I was going to talk about today. So I wanted to cover some ideas, and don't take this as being a comprehensive collection of everything that you could do. This is just some ideas and some thoughts. So what are my options? What should I think about? But please bear in mind, as I said, there's no way that we can cover everything. So just take this as a set of ideas and thoughts about some of the things that you might look to explore. So first of all, what sorts of organisation could you work for? So I work for Extreme Networks. They're a vendor or a manufacturer of networking equipment, and there are certainly opportunities within vendors or manufacturers in the networking industry. Now, organisations like Extreme are focused solely on networking solutions and products, but many organisations require networking as part of their offering. Now, that's an ever increasing set of requirements, with many things having some element of networking within them today. So you can find almost any product and find some element of networking included within that in some capacity now. That's something which is really a trend in recent years. So there are many opportunities within vendors, both networking focused and for whom networking is somewhat peripheral to their core product portfolio. Now, another organisation you might choose to work in is a service provider. Now, service providers plainly require networking as part of their solution set. I'm sure all of you are customers of a service provider and are probably watching this broadcast now over a network delivered by a service provider to whom you are a subscriber. So there are many roles within service providers to build, maintain and manage network infrastructure. Now there are also integrators. Now these can be very small companies or very large companies. They may be focused 100% on networking, or they may see networking as merely part of a broader solution set that they provide, which encompasses software and computing hardware and other applications, of which networking is a part of that solution to make that a full deliverable to their customers. So there's many different types of integrators, from very small to very large, and focused in different areas. And then you have end user customers. These are customers that will take solutions from vendors, from service providers, from integrators, and deploy them to meet their business needs. Now they might be in the private sector, they might be education organisations, they might be government, or they may be involved in activities such as sport. Now sports organisations we're going to talk in a little bit more detail about in a few moments, but those organisations require and depend very heavily on network solutions as well. So let's look at what sort of roles are available. And once again, by no means exhaustive, just some ideas. So the first one I wanted to touch on was the support engineer role. This is someone that will maintain, manage, monitor a network infrastructure, will understand and take on reports made to them by their customers. They could be internal customers or external customers, and understand how that problem can be resolved. Now these sorts of roles exist in many organisations. Extreme Networks has support engineers. Our systems integrators we work with have support engineers, and end user customers have support engineers as well. So there's lots of opportunity for support engineer type roles, and if you enjoy troubleshooting and getting to the root of problems and get a thrill, if you like, from fixing those solutions, then a support engineer job is probably a very worthwhile avenue for you to explore. You then have installation engineers. Now very often this is actually one and the same individual as a support engineer, depending upon the sort of organisation that you work in. But they will be more focused on the deployment of a solution, the configuration, the cabling, the rack mounting or the physical mounting of that equipment. That's something that an installation engineer would do. You'll then have project managers. Now these are very often less technical, but still typically require some level of technical knowledge on the solutions that they are managing the deployment of, and they will be responsible for making sure the equipment's in the right place at the right time, all of the relevant ancillary components, be them product or services, are ordered and in place at the right time, and ensuring solutions are delivered to their customers. Once again, they could be internal or external, in a timely and efficient manner. Then we have the role of systems engineer. Now I spent much of my career working as a systems engineer. Now this can mean different things to different people. So take my definition of this, if you like, as really my way of looking at this. But a systems engineer is someone that will take on board a customer's requirements and define and propose the most applicable solution for that customer. That may well involve explaining to a customer what sorts of things they could do to make that solution implement better. It may involve proposing ideas and suggestions to build the most effective solution for that customer. And it will certainly involve positioning what you can offer in the most effective way for that customer, to be convincing that what you're proposing and selling is the most efficient solution, the most effective solution for that customer to fulfill their requirements and their business needs. Now, systems engineers typically work very closely with salespeople as well. Now, the salesperson is going to have a more direct responsibility for the commercial elements of a proposal, the pricing, and all elements around the commercial deliverables of that proposal. But they will also be responsible for positioning what they are proposing in the best possible way. And I've worked with a number of salespeople, and a very strong sales systems engineer relationship is key towards defining, proposing, and convincing a customer that your solution is the best solution for them. So another role within the networking industry is that of product management. So product management involves understanding what's happening in the marketplace, where standards are evolving to, what competitive products and offerings are available and what the competitors are doing, what customers are asking for and what they're demanding, and using that information to define where investments are made to make sure that the products that their organization, now this could be very typically a vendor, but it may also be a systems integrator, are built to be delivered in the most effective way and can address the most of the market. Now this can be a very challenging role because those inputs can be quite complex. They may well vary between different parts of the world as well. So the requirements in North America may well be very different from those in Europe and very different from those in Asia, for example. So these can be a very distinct regional variations that a project manager will need to take into account when defining where these investments are made. Now, the next role I wanted to touch on is that of training. We would be remiss, of course, not to mention training. So you want to be like Isaac, I guess. Now, training is a very interesting one because training for me encompasses a number of different skills in order to be an effective trainer. And you might be thinking, well, if I've taught someone about networking, I'm not going to be doing the same thing week in, week out in a repetitive type fashion. Well, very likely not, because training requires to keep your customers, your partners, your internal staff up to speed on industry developments and where the technology is going. Now, we've not really talked much about product in this session, but we have talked about technology. We've gone back in time to some extent, but we've also talked about where the latest technology is going as well. Now, networking, as with many industries, can move at some speed. So it can require a lot of skill to keep up to date, and therefore a lot of training, investment in time to be aware of and upskilled on the very latest technology developments. Now, one thing that I wanted to cover, and I had this piece of advice actually quite late in my career, probably too late for me, to be honest, and if I'd have had it earlier, I may well have taken heed of this. Now, somebody said to me, if you want to be the best you can be, to fulfill as much of your potential as you can, then one thing that you should do is explore the idea of specialization. And by specialization, I mean focusing on a particular technology, particular topic, particular area, and being the most knowledgeable you can be in that particular area. Now, as I say, this advice came to me quite late, but when I look around me at people that I know, and I would challenge you to do the same thing, if you look at people that you aspire to, people around you that you work with that maybe are seen to be the go-to person for a certain question or a certain piece of information, you probably find that they have chosen to be specialists in a certain area. Now, that's enabled them to be seen as experts, to excel in that particular field, and to really maximize their potential. So that's a piece of advice that I think is very worthwhile listening to and taking on board if you can. Now, there are areas for this within the networking industry, and I've just tried to bring out a few of these here. So the first one I wanted to cover was security. Now, we talked about security in week 7, I think it was, last week, yes. And we just touched on that. Now, that was, I think what Isaac did was excellent, but it by no means covered all of the considerations. Isaac actually said this. It by no means covered all of the considerations. And if you look at even network security, let alone the broader IT security, there are so many things to think about and consider that this certainly has the potential for an area to specialize in. And even within security, then you have the domain of security planning, of risk mitigation, and things like forensics. We know we've had a security incident. Where did it come from? How was it caused? What can we do about it? Is there anything legal that we need to do as a result of that activity as well? So even within security, there are various sub-elements which you might want to choose to focus on. Now, the next area is wireless LAN. We've covered this in this training as well, and we did a reasonable level job, I think, of covering wireless LAN as a technology. But once again, if you really wanted to get into nuts and bolts of wireless LAN, there's a lot of work required to fully understand that. And within networking, there are many, many engineers that focus and specialize in wireless LAN as a solution or as a part of their vendor, their organization's product portfolio. So wireless LAN is certainly a worthwhile solution to specialize in if you choose to do so. Next one I've picked is very specific. I've picked on BGP, or the Border Gateway Protocol. And I mention that because I know for a fact this is an area where skills are highly sought after. There is certainly a lack of people, or there has been in the past, a lack of people with skills in this area. Skills are very highly sought after, and because they're rare, this can tend to be quite a rewarding job to be in, and you will find that service providers are continually looking for expertise in this space. And I think the reason for this is that it is quite a difficult thing to understand fully. It's a very specific, a very niche technology maybe, and therefore skills in this area, in my experience, are quite hard to come by. So it's something which there is scope in my mind to focus on. There are plenty of other topics like this as well, but BGP is one that came to mind when I thought about how to explain this idea. And the next thing I wanted to cover was industry or vertical specialization. Now, you might think to yourself, well, a network is a network, right? One organization's use of a network is going to be much the same as another organization's. I don't believe that to be true. If you look at different types of verticals, they may have very different requirements that lend themselves to having different skills to deploy them. So I've picked a few examples here. Financial services is a sector which leans very heavily on IT and certainly on networking. And one of the things that I know that they seek is very low latency networking, the ability for communications between two devices to be as low latency, as rapid as possible. And that gives them a competitive advantage because it means they can trade more rapidly and therefore potentially be more productive in their trading transactions. If you look at retail, retail's moved incredibly fast over the past 5 years, probably over the last 12 months, in fact, we think everything that's happened. I mean, the retail space, they're looking to leverage things like electronic shelf labeling for more efficiency in pricing information. And they're looking to leverage things like analytics around the movement of users within a store as well. So there are various networking related things within retail, which means the network is critically important and unique in terms of how they use it. And then you have service providers. Now, service providers have a lot of very specific service provider requirements, such as accounting and billing, which you don't tend to find quite as much in other vertical areas. And the last one I'll mention is sport. Now, if I had my time again, I think this is what I would do. I would try and focus on sport because I like sport. And sport is something which requires an ever-increasing amount of networking technology. Now, I've been lucky enough to work on 2 Olympic Games, so I have had some exposure to this. And I can guarantee to you that there is a lot of applications for networking in sport, some of which are really quite specific to how an organisation works. They require real-time television feeds. They require secure communications for things like anti-doping data. They require the rapid and timely delivery, and reliable, I should say, of information such as commentator information systems and solutions to the press and media, those kind of things as well. And even within sport, situations evolving quite fast. Over the last few years, we've seen the emergence of esports. Now, in the case of esports, the network quite literally is the playing field. Now, think about how critical that is and how much of an integral component of an esports organization or an events operation the network becomes. So that's something else that I would recommend looking at and considering. And I can see lots of opportunities to work in the esports space. So next thing I wanted to cover was where are opportunities opening up. So we've talked about esport on the last graphic. I covered esports, I think, in some detail. But there's 2 other areas that for me are massive growth areas. The first of those is Internet of Things. Now, the Internet of Things refers to devices which don't have a human interface. So they're devices that are networked, they're on the network, they're probably connected to the internet, and they have a purpose that requires that network, but it doesn't require a human interaction directly. So things like CCTV cameras is probably one of the classic examples of an Internet of Things space. But if you think about something which is networked, which has communications to it, smart homes, smart offices, smart buildings are big users of Internet of Things type devices. Now, the Internet of Things drives a couple of network specific requirements. First of all, the massive growth in the number of devices. So it's just simply a growth scaling factor, the number of devices that are required. But also Internet of Things devices tend to need an extra level of security as well, because there's no human interaction. They can tend to be quite security vulnerable. So you need to look at how you can make those Internet of Things devices more secure. The concept of network segmentation that Isaac touched on can become quite important for Internet of Things devices as well. And just to relate this to something which we talked about last week, Isaac talked about DDoS. Now, one of the main propagators of DDoS attacks has been Internet of Things devices, which have not been properly secured and have left themselves open to be infected with some piece of malware that was then the perpetuator, if you like, of that DDoS attack. So with Internet of Things, we need to look very long and very hard at how we can make those networks, those devices, more secure. And the next area I was going to mention is that of 5G. Now, 5G itself is not a technology that we've talked about at any length in this session. And 5G is not a topic we intended to cover really as part of this session either. It's a technology which was not part of the brief for this particular training content. But what 5G does do is drive a massive amount of investment, both from service providers and enterprise customers, to leverage this game-changing technology. Now, even though we've not covered 5G itself, what 5G does drive is the need for a large amount of what's sometimes referred to as backhaul, the connectivity of those 5G networks to other parts of a solution's infrastructure to ensure that that delivers part of an overall solution. So 5G will drive lots of demand for additional networking to fulfill its potential. And with that, the engineers, the project managers, the systems engineers to go and define how those solutions should be built and how they should operate. So looking at these three things, and this is just an example of three things that I conjured, if you like, to show what's happening. This eSport, the Internet of Things, the 5G, these are all areas which are driving the need for additional investment and therefore additional staff in the networking space. So lastly, where to look, where to engage to find these opportunities. So you can look at the website careers pages of many organisations. We touched on this earlier, I think, in the course. But Extreme Networks has a careers page. Feel free to look it up. It's a very good page, in my opinion. It includes information about us as an organisation, why we should be appealing to work for, and it does detail some of the open vacancies and opportunities that we have available. But many other organisations will offer similar pages, so that's a good place to look. Now, LinkedIn is another resource as well, which enables you to reach out to people, to organisations, to see adverts, to see postings. So that's yet another resource that you can leverage. I've just picked a couple here, but there are obviously many other areas that you can look at and explore to find where opportunities exist that you might be able to take advantage of. So I'm hoping you found that useful. Thanks for your attention to this particular module. That's it from me. So Rowan, I'll hand back to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Some fantastic advice there. Some great things for you to think about to help you think about what your future career could be in IT and networking. Now, let's share with you information about the exam. So let's cover all the things you need to know in terms of process of getting access to the exam, how the exam is going to run, and also where you can come to get some help if you need it. So now I want to introduce you to Claire. So Claire's been behind the scenes all the way through this series of live broadcasts. She's been pressing many of the buttons. She's been keeping us on track. She's been keeping all the team in sync and making sure that this program has been successfully delivered. And we asked Claire, and again, this was recorded earlier. Claire's there right now. She's managing the broadcast as we speak. So we asked her to record something earlier to talk you through how you're going to get access to the exam, how it's going to work, and again, if you've got any questions, just pop those into Meeting Pulse, and we'll make sure we get you the answers you need. So let's roll Claire's video.
Thanks for the introduction, guys, and I just want to say again, congratulations for making it to week 8 of Extreme Academy Live. With just a few short steps, we'll be able to take you through to access the Extreme Academy exam, and I'm here to help you do that. Don't worry if you miss any important steps. I will be posting the slides after the session for you to go back to. To start, you just need an Extreme Portal account, and you can do this by going to the Extreme Networks login page. Create an account through the Academy link. It's good to mention here that if you already are a customer or partner with us, you don't need to create a new account, and you should already have access to the Extreme Dojo. If you're not a customer or partner with us, this process is for you. Fill out your information on the registration form. Then click the terms and condition boxes. I also want to say, if you are under 18, please get in contact with us as we have a slightly different process in place for you due to data protection. You can contact us by emailing extremeacademy@extremenetworks.com. And it's as simple as that. You should receive your registration email almost instantaneously. Please check your spam and junk folders just in case. Click the Extreme login page link and this will take you to the Extreme Dojo. Before getting through to the Dojo page, it will prompt you to create a password, so please do this. Once you've created your password, it will take you through to the Extreme Dojo homepage. Now you've created your Extreme Portal account and have access to the Extreme Dojo, you're now ready to take the exam. You can get to the exam by clicking this link, and again, I will post this in the slides. By clicking the Introduction to Future Network assessment link, it will take you through to the start page. Before you start your exam, there's some key points here that you just need to review. It's 60 minutes long, there's 40 questions, and you need 75% to pass. Don't worry if you fail the first time, you can see here that you do get 2 attempts. If you need further attempts, just contact us and we'll be able to reset that for you. Once you hit the Start Exam button, please don't try and come away because it will use an attempt. Make sure you revise, you've got your notes, and you're ready to start. And that's it. Once you've passed your exam, you've become an Extreme Networks Associate, an XNA. You'll receive a badge and certificate on the Dojo page once you go back into your achievements. Congratulations again, please get revising, take care and good luck.
Thanks, Claire. Great video. Hopefully that answers all your questions about the exam. If you've got any further questions, again, just jump into the Meeting Pulse app. Extreme team can answer your questions there, or just drop us an email. Just reply to one of the emails you've had from us, and we'll answer your questions. We're going to do everything we can to support you through the process of getting access and passing this exam. All right, we're coming up to the end now, and you know what? We're coming to the end of this course, but so although we're finishing this course now, for us it just feels like we're at the beginning. We're at the beginning of Extreme Academy and Extreme Academy Live. We're so pleased with the kind of community spirit that's built up around this program. So this might be the end of this course. It's definitely not the end. So I thought we'd finish this up. We're going to turn it back over to Isaac, who's going to share some thoughts with you, share some advice. He's going to close it out. He's also going to share with us what you can expect coming up from Extreme Academy Live. Back to you, Isaac.
Yeah, I don't quite know what to say. This has been some adventure, right? When we started this, we didn't know what to expect. We genuinely wanted to help people, and I think to a large extent we've been able to help people, encourage people, motivate people. This stuff is interesting. Networking is fantastic, and something I said right, I think it was in lesson 1 when I started. A career in networking is something that you can enjoy for the rest of your life. It can give you fulfillment because it is so interesting. And like I said, it's done it for me, and it's done it for so many people. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. Certainly, we have enjoyed producing this. This is not the end of the road, right? This was the beginning of a journey. We really didn't know the destination. We really didn't know where this would be ending up. But we've had thousands upon thousands of people watching the videos, across all of the videos. We've broken records, internally with amount of views for videos. But all of that means very little when we compare that to how this has helped you. If this has helped you, just given you direction, if this has been able to encourage you to say, you know what, I'm going to do this change in career. I'm going to start my own little networking business. If Isaac could start his business and he didn't know half this stuff, then I can as well. And you can. If I look back and I think when I lived in South Africa, I started a networking business hardly knowing anything If I had this knowledge that I've been sharing with you and teaching you over the last 8 weeks, if I had that knowledge when I started, I would have been so much more successful. What you need is courage, right? Courage, the courage to make the choice to change, the courage to change career, the courage to start your own small business, the courage to study further. That's what you need to make a success of this material, of this content that we've put out there. Extreme Networks is here to help you. Extreme Academy is here to help you in the way that we can. We've built up a nice little community. We don't want to let that die. We have some ideas about perhaps using a Discord server for us to stay in touch. And for some of you guys, Miroslav and Wilson and so many more who've answered questions when people have asked on the chat, where you guys can jump in and help other people who have questions, that we can't necessarily answer or on there all the time. You guys can go and help and learn from each other and build a community of friends, build a community of people who are like-minded, who want to help each other and take pleasure in helping other people, not putting them down, but lifting them up. If you help someone, you yourself feel better, don't you? That's how I feel. Every time I feel I finish one of these sessions, I feel good, like I did something good today. I helped someone. So if you can answer questions and help other people, we've said this as well before. Share these videos with your friends. Perhaps somebody who's unemployed. Perhaps someone who's struggling, financially, or we don't charge for anything, not even for the exam. Give them an opportunity, give them a shot, give them an opportunity to do something new with their life, something interesting. And even if they don't change career, how cool is it to stand up, to chat to people, and now something about networking, about wireless. You know how it works. You know how bits and bytes are. You know what's a byte. You know what's a bit. It's fantastic. The more you know, the more you know, right? It's really great. So it's been a privilege of mine. Thank you to Rowan and Paul and John and all the people at Extreme who've enabled us to do something like that. Bethany as well, getting Academy off the ground. Just thank you so much for this opportunity to do something that I really enjoy doing, which is, teaching. Course 2, right? Course 2. A lot of people have asked, what's going to be Course 2? Course 2, if you don't know yet, is about wireless technology, right? We touched on wireless in this course. We didn't go very deep, right? We really did skim the surface. But I hope that that's been enough to whet your appetite, because Course 2, it's going to be covered in a lot more detail, okay? It's going to be covered in a lot more detail. So imagine, 8 sessions, or I'm not too sure yet. We're still working on how many sessions it's going to be and how long, etc., etc. But imagine 8 sessions just covering wireless. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to walk away with that and it's going to be like, wow, I really know wireless. And trust me when I tell you this, there isn't enough networking engineers in the world. There just isn't. But if there isn't enough networking engineers, there's even less specialists who really understand wireless. And this is not a degree, right? People study wireless, for 3 years. This is not a degree. But believe me, if you sit through that course, if you learn, you will be on a totally different level. Certainly you will be 10 times better than what I am, because I just didn't know any of this stuff when I started. And if I could run a business for 10 years without knowing half of this, how much more can you do? So stay with us throughout this. We will send Claire will send email notifications when we've got further news. And thank you for this great opportunity. What else can I say? What else can I say? Win with Extreme. Hang on. Just don't go away. Look who's just turned up. Nando's. Woohoo! Oh my goodness. This is great. At the end of the course, Nando turns up. I'm gonna go have a great meal now. Thanks everyone. Thank you Extreme for sponsoring me with Nando's. Absolutely fantastic. Hey, have a good time. Enjoy the exam. Go for it. Please let me know on LinkedIn or whatever. Antonio Isaac Diabreu is my name. You'll find me on LinkedIn with a purple line art drawing of my face and my crazy hair. So woohoo. Good luck with the exam. Don't worry, it's not going to be a walk in the park. If you fail, take it a second time again, and just absolutely nail it. Come on, I'm so proud of you. Go for it. Oh man, this is going to be so good. I'm just going to get a plate. This is so fantastic. Oh man, this is so cool. With some fries. Oops, I'm still on the video. Oh dear.